Working with soft slabs allows considerable spontaneity in construction. Soft clay drapes over molds, or can be placed in slings made of fabric. Clay will repeat the shape of anything you place it over or into. There are many objects in your household that can serve as molds for draping clay. Keep in mind that clay sticks to non-porous materials. Materials that are best for molds when working with clay are plaster, wood, canvas, and newspaper. If your mold is not made of any of those materials, line it with fabric or newspaper. Here you see me preparing a to-go coffee mug, which I will use as my mold. I use newspaper as a liner. If your clay comes from a factory in a nicely shaped large brick, and the slab that you need is not wider than the width of the block, the easiest way to create a slab is to slice one off of the brick. If you do that, make sure you are slicing a little thicker slab than you actually want to end up with. Use a kitchen rolling pin or a dowel to roll out the clay. For our purposes, the thickness of the slab should be between 3/8 and half of an inch. To produce an even slab, you need two guides of corresponding thickness on both sides of the rolling pin. For guides, you can use wooden strips, dowels, books of the same thickness, and other objects. When your slab is ready, use the rib to smooth out the clay on both sides. It serves two purposes. It smooths the clay out and compresses it. Here you see me rolling the slab over my object to establish the length that I need. In this case, I'm not creating any templates beforehand. I'm rolling my slab over the object to figure out what design I might end up with. When I know what shape I want my slab to be, I can concentrate on texture. If you don't have your texture tools just yet, look around and see what you can find in your surroundings. Here I'm using some packaging materials, which I believe came from a potato bag. Both sides that connect together on a form should be beveled at 45-degree angle. You need to bevel in opposite directions so the ends overlap. Let's take a look at the diagram. Here's our slab prepared to be formed around the cup. Both sides of the slab need to be beveled where the bevel line is parallel to each other. In other words, if you look at your slab from the top, you need to get rid of the top corner on the left side and the bottom corner on the right side across the whole width of the slab. I use the needle tool to get rid of those corners on both sides. Knife would work just as well. You already know how to connect two sides together. Scratch and slip, and then press. Wait till the clay dries to soft leather hard and remove the mold. If it's difficult to remove the mold, you might need to twist it and pull it out at the same time. When your cups are leather hard, it's time to make the bottom. Take out the slab that's left over from the cup. It's been wrapped in plastic so it didn't dry out. And trace the bottom, just a little bit larger than the actual circumference of the cup. Here you see me using a little roller to flatten the sharp edges. This is the trick potters use, not to touch clay too much. The more you touch your clay, the more moisture is drawn out of it by your hands. If, after attaching the bottom of your cup, you want to preserve the seam and not to blend the bottom to the cup, tap it several times on the table to compress it to make sure that it really sticks to the cup. If you're using a stamp as your signature on the bottom of the cup, now is the perfect time to do it. And the last step is to think about the rim of the cup. I really don't like the way my rim turned out, so what I'm gonna do, I'm going to place a skirt on it. To do that, I'm rolling out a thin coil and then flattening it out to very thin thickness. Then I scratch and slip the rim of my cup and place that flattened coil over the rim, and then blend the inside edges and leave the outside edges visible. This is a plaster mold. You can use a wooden bowl as well. Any bowl would work if you line it with newspaper. The quickest way to make a drape mold for one-time use is with paper and tape. Start by balling up some newspaper. The balls will act as a filler for the center of the mold. Start to slowly bind the newspaper together with the tape and use more paper to wrap up the watered-up balls. Build the mold to the desired shape. Before I begin, I'd like to figure out the foot for this bowl. I don't want the foot to be straight. I want it to be flared out, so I will have to use a template. To see what form a flat template makes, cut a series of circles and experiment. On this diagram, you see how the longer arc produces a flatter and wider cone, and the shorter arc produces a taller and narrower cone. For my bowl, I am looking for a shape that is similar to a G shape on this picture. I decided to make the template for the foot out of two parts. First, I will use paper to work out the design that I need. Paper is great for the early stages of developing templates. Paper is easy to modify. After you worked out your form and have something that you are ready to use, trace your paper template on more durable material like tar paper or watercolor paper. The foot I made seems a little too small, so I will have to make another template. While I am making another template, let's talk about strategic placement of a foot. Feet serve several functions. First, it lifts the pot off of the table, which aesthetically provides a pedestal for your piece and is useful if the pot is filled with hot liquid because it doesn't scorch the table surface. And second, it supports the whole structure of the pot. There's a point in each pot where the wall changes its angle from horizontal to vertical. Right at that center of that angle, the pot carries most strain. The foot should be placed strategically at that weakest point of the pot to support its function. When you need to roll a large slab, the width of which is greater than the width of the block of clay, cut as much of the clay you think you might need and pre-stretch it before rolling. To pre-stretch clay, you can slam the clay on a table several times or use the rolling pin like a mallet. I just use my fist. The idea is to move the clay gradually. Work your way across the slab. When your slab is close to half an inch at its lowest point, then you can roll it with a rolling pin. Smooth out your slab with a rib. After you rolled out your slab, lay it over the mold. Gently press the clay down. Remove excess clay with a knife and tidy the edges. Smooth out tension cracks with a rib and apply texture. Now I am ready to trace both parts of that foot. The template shows me where I need to scratch and slip for the foot attachment. So I scratch and slip, and now I'm ready to assemble that foot. I'd like both parts of the foot to overlap for design. So I scratch and slip connection surfaces and press the two together. I can attach two parts flat on a table. However, to close the circle, I have to lift the foot off of the table to connect, since it turns into a 3D shape. After scratching and slipping all connecting surfaces, I join the foot and the ball together. One of the great tools to modify the surface of the clay is a Surform shaver, which you can get at any hardware store. With this Surform, you can shave off rough edges and modify feet and rims to your liking. When the clay dries to soft, leather hard, or leather hard, you can remove it from the mold. And the final step in construction is to attend to the rim of this bowl. I'd like to make the rim matching the two cups I made before. Also, the clay is still soft enough for me to modify the shape of the wall if I want to. That's what I'm gonna do with the very top of the bowl, right at the rim.